All right, hello and welcome back to the Own Accord podcast. I'm your host Ben, and as per usual, we are talking NFL draft on this Tuesday at 2 p.m. But there's going to be a little something different about it today. I am solo, as you can see. Nobody here is with me. But about once a month, what I'd like to do is get onto the PFF mock draft simulator and make a mock draft of my own, just to kind of check in to see where we are at this point in the season. We're going to draft for all 31 teams, the first round pick, no Panthers, sorry. And we're just going to look and see kind of where prospects sit, what team needs look like, and in general, where I think everyone could fall right now. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch every single second of every single one of these prospects, and for some of them, I haven't watched much at all, really. I'm going to try not to talk too much about prospects I don't know a lot about, but it's going to be kind of unavoidable just because I have not had the time to go through, especially in December and November, watch every single one of these guys. I will highlight them if we've watched them on previous live streams because, of course, I do know a lot more about them. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. I have the let me find the tab. Sorry. I have the mock draft set up right here. I have not pressed start. I also have not planned any of the. Oh, Browns don't have a first round pick either. I've not done too much preparation for this just because that would just be a YouTube video, right? The point of seeing it live, I think, is to allow me to take you through what my thought process is at the moment and kind of see how my brain is working at this point in the draft cycle. Now, on the clock are the Chicago Bears at number one overall. Now, I can't do trades because I'm not paying for PFF Plus, but this could definitely be a trade out spot. Whether they take Marv, whether they stick with Justin Fields, whether they go Williams or May, who the hell knows, really? Again, it's December, we don't know everything, but one thing I do know is that Caleb Williams is really, really good, and the Bears may be sick of Justin Fields. Caleb Williams, obviously, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, not in Heisman contention because his team was not doing a lot of winning down the stretch, but probably the best quarterback in college football this year. And moving on from Justin Fields does make sense, even if I don't agree with it, even if I think he just has never been put in a position to succeed. You could completely understand the Bears kind of just wanting to clean house, fresh start, and rock out with a new quarterback to cap that all off. Additionally, with the fifth pick, you can take a weapon for him. You could take Marv won't be there, but there'll be Bowers, there'll be Coleman, Neighbors, or you could draft somebody to protect him. Alt and Fashanu will be there. I think if it's not a trade out, they will almost certainly take a quarterback. And as of right now, Caleb Williams is the number one quarterback on my draft board. But the New England Patriots aren't too sad about all this going down because that means they get the opportunity to draft Drake May, who is, again, super elite, amazing talent, maybe the other best quarterback in college football this year. Just arm talent, rushing upside, up the wazoo, so much potential. All the tools are really there. Of course, he does have some faults, but if you're New England, you need pretty much an entirely new offense, and that, depending on your team building mentality, starts at the quarterback position. Now, with the Cardinals, this is kind of a tough pick, is what I would say if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't there. They're absolutely holding on to Kyler. He's looked just spectacular throughout this whole year. He has, coming off a pretty brutal injury where he was out for almost a year and a half. He has come back and it seems like he just hasn't missed a beat. One of the most underrated players in the game. I know it's funny to say, oh, Kyler plays COD or whatever. Oh, Kyler is short, which is true, but he's still a top 10 quarterback. And drafting him one of the best receiver prospects we've seen in a while, it seems like a no-brainer to me now. Where's my jersey? I'm a Commanders fan, so this pick is getting a little personal to me, and I do cry knowing that Marvin Harrison Jr. is off the board. But here's where my mind's at. I think Fashanu is the best tackle in this class, and I think that is where one of our biggest needs is. I also think Bowers is the best tight end prospect we've seen maybe ever. I think I have him over Pitts. I think he's just a versatile weapon, in the words of Bengal, and it's hard to differentiate between the two because we do absolutely need weapons. Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Terry, love him. Terry has been really, really rough around this stretch, and we don't have a lot of guys who can separate, which is again why you really want Marvin Harrison Jr. But as of right now, it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. I could also totally see us being in the QB race. It's Howell is good enough right now, but do you want a player who's just good enough at quarterback? But looking here at number four, some of these guys aren't gonna declare. I don't expect Shador Sanders to declare. Ewers depends on the playoff run, but who knows? Jordan Travis obviously just came down with a terrible injury. Milrow may not declare. But I don't, at four, I don't like Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, or Michael Penix Jr., but I assure you we will likely see all of them in the coming picks in this first round. This is just a first round mock, by the way, because if I haven't seen all the first round guys, Lord knows I have not seen all the second round guys. So I think at the end of the day, we are going to go Fashanu, just because he seems like a rare, can't miss tackle prospect. And when you have the chance to take that, when you have the chance to shore up that offensive line for what will hopefully be a long, long time, you do it. Now, of course, the Browns won like 4 games in Joe Thomas's entire career, so the argument could be made that Bowers being the next, Kelsey or Gronk or Kittle is more valuable, but just as of right now, that's kind of where I'm sitting. I could totally see Bowers being here, but I could also totally see the front office being like, tight end at 4. I don't know if I like that. Um, but now we get to the Bears. And the Bears, again, the question is, do you get him a weapon, or do you get him a guy like Joe Alt, who can come in and protect their new quarterback, Caleb Williams? Or do you help out on the defense a little bit? Do you get Jerzon Newton? Do you get the Leatu Latu, who's spectacular? Do you get the Chop Robinsons? Dallas Turner, too, is a little. I have him over Gerard Verse. And again, I kind of go back to the Bengals 2022, I believe, draft discourse, where it was, oh, Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, right? And you saw, obviously, the image of Burrow throwing the ball to anyone being guarded by Penei Sewell, or Burrow getting sacked, throwing to Jamar Chase, and that obviously hasn't come to fruition at all. And we know good quarterbacks can make bad situations better, and I truly believe Caleb Williams is not only a good but a great quarterback, a good improviser who should be able to play behind a bad offensive line, excuse me. And but again, you could say the same thing about Fields. He should be able to play behind a bad offensive line. He should be able to get out of the pocket and make something happen, but that just hasn't been how it's looked. And of course, part of that is scheme, part of that is skill, part of that is mental. But at the end of the day, I think the move for them may just be take the easy pick, kind of do what the Texans did last year, and take Leatu Latu. 2 franchise cornerstones at franchise cornerstone positions. You get the quarterback, you get the edge rusher, just like you got CJ Stroud and Will Anderson last year, and Lord knows that is working out for the Texans. Might I remind you, I loved that pick from the Texans on draft day. I loved the trade. Many people did not, but I saw through the mist. I did my own research. I thought independently. I'm going to stop. Jets. This could be a really a really interesting pick. Let me walk you through a Jaden Daniels Jets pick. They have Aaron Rodgers returning next year, right? So they don't want to take a highly touted QB like Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. just because they are a little bit older and they're losing a year off their prime, even if they are sacrificing it for development at the NFL level. Just sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. We don't know when he'll retire. Jaden Daniels, however, you don't really have that reservation with, right? He is a guy who can use maybe a little extra to get into an NFL stadium and get with the team, learn from them, learn how an NFL franchise operates. It's not who I'm going to end up going with, but that I think could be a very interesting pick at their position. Another weapon I don't really see. Rodgers and Wilson could be great, and we've seen Rodgers perform very well with only one good receiver in his career. I think the offensive line is okay. At tackle, this is a bit tough because I think their guards are much, much stronger than their tackles, just like I think Washington is, which makes Joe Alt a very enticing prospect. Um, Drazon Newton, they don't need really much help on that defensive line. Same goes for Robinson and Verse. I like their secondary, so it can't really be McKinstry. So really, we're looking between Bowers and Alt here, and I'm gonna go Joe Alt. Just a mammoth of a guy. Just I think he's 6'7", 100,000 pounds, and there's really no one that size in the NFL. Like you always hear with power rush guys or speed to power guys, oh well, that's not going to translate into the NFL. Like you saw with Aiden Hutchinson, like you saw with Lucas Van Ness. This is my school of thought. But you look at somebody that size, and then you look in the NFL like median size, and even some of the bigger guys, and you're like, they're not bigger than him. They're probably not stronger than him. I don't see a reason why this wouldn't translate. Of course, at tackle, you do worry about him getting beat by the speed rush a lot more than you would a smaller guy. But I think that size, that reach, that strength should be able to cover up for some of his speed faults, I guess. New York Giants, goddamn. This is kind of a dumpster fire. This is another team we could be looking at QB. We could be looking at, I think, Bo Nix here. I like him a little more than Penix. Daniels too, but I don't know if they would take Daniels when they have Daniel Jones for so much money, or any quarterback for that matter, which is why I'm going to stay away from that position. They need a weapon, of course, and Neighbors and Bowers are both here. Those are two awesome, awesome looking guys, two guys who can come in and make a difference pretty much immediately. Neighbors is my wide receiver too, of course, behind Marvin Harrison Jr. His name completely escaped me for a moment. Jazon Newton's not really in play. Odunsi is great, but he might be my wide receiver 4-ish. I would say I have Keon Coleman, who we have a video about, over him as of right now. And I mean, the secondary, sure, absolutely. They took Banks last year, and I think he's been holding it down. Wiggins may be my CB1 this year. I feel like Fuaga or any other tackle like Latham or, God, his name's totally Amarius Mims would be a bit of a reach here. Ultimately, I think to play to Daniel Jones' strengths, you want either a guy who can make it happen after the catch or a great safety valve tight end. And I think it would be a disservice to Brock Bowers to call him a great safety valve tight end just because of how many things he can do at an elite level. But I do think he's the second best receiving option in this class, and so that's where I'm gonna. That's kind of where I have to put him. Uh, and the Titans are kind of crying right now because we talked with Jackie Boy Sports last week about the Titans, and he said one of their biggest disappointments this year was their tight end Chiga Conquo. Just drop problems, just not being able to get himself open as much as he's able to be schemed open. A good blocker, but absolutely a position that needs upgrading. And you're just not taking a tight end not named Brock Bowers this high. Like you look at these names and you tell me who's supposed to go at 8, right? This then becomes kind of a best player available situation where you think Neighbors to pair with Traylon Burks, two very different skill sets, could create a huge dynamic on that passing game, especially with Will Levis coming in as likely the full-time starter next year. You could see they've tried to draft corners. They tried with Farley, they tried with McDuffie. It just has not worked out. You could see a Kool-Aid McKinstry or Nate Wiggins go here just to shore up that secondary that has been struggling for a long, long time. You could see a Drazon Newton or a Chop Robinson or a Dallas Turner to try and shore up that defensive line. Again, Fuaga, I think this is a little too high for him. Not to mention Amarius Mims, I like a little better, and Graham Barton. Overall, though, I think the promise of a dynamic offense with Burks and Neighbors is too much to pass up for them. I think it's just with guys with such different skill sets, you can do so much when they both play at a high level. We haven't seen a ton of healthy Traylon Burks ever since he was traded for Antonio Brown, essentially. But not Antonio Brown, AJ Brown. Goodness me, I'm sorry. Um, but I think if they can keep him healthy and really get him going alongside Malik Neighbors, that's just going to be a dangerous duo. Now we look at the Saints. This could be prime Johnny Newton territory. I've heard people call him Johnny Newton and Juzon Newton, and I'm not really sure which to call him. It's listed as Juzon Newton here. I'm gonna call him mostly that. My apologies if he goes by Johnny now. Uh, you don't look at wide receiver here really. You can absolutely look at a Chop Robinson or a Dallas Turner, and I would say the defensive line is probably their biggest position of need. Didn't work out drafting tackle. What's his name? God, I can't think of. Oh, Trevor Penning. Sorry. Did not work out drafting him. He has not looked awesome. Of course, his rookie year injured. Coming back this year and isn't doing exactly what you want him to do. We may be looking at another kind of cornerstone to build a defense around. And while I do like Chop Robinson, Dallas Turner, Verse, and Braylon Trice as well, I do think Truzon Newton is the last of that upper tier of defensive linemen that you see in this draft. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is kind of disgusting because they need quarterback a lot. They do kind of have the team around a quarterback to be able to almost plug and play. This is really funny. Guard and center both listed as weaknesses for them. Weaknesses at all three levels. These aren't always accurate, but I think it is funny. This could totally be a Bo Nix pick. This could because he would come in with an okay offensive line, of course, having Tristan Wirfs on it, I believe. Did he retire? Excuse me. Is he still playing? Yes, he is. It looks like having Wirfs would be amazing for Bo Nix. I think he'd love it, and that might obviously coming into an offense with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as well. They can grab a receiver later in the draft to kind of pair up with him. Ultimately, I do think it is Bo Nix out of Oregon. Is it a little too high based on maybe talent and age? Yes, but I think if he were to go to a team, he would want to go to a team with an already shored up weapons and a competent head coach, which I think they do have currently in Todd Bowles, and pieces on defense that can make you optimistic for their future. Raiders, this is another best player available pick. And you look at Odunze and you're like, is Devontae Adams going to be around next year? Like, we don't really know. We're not super confident in that yet. I would say when we know more about that, this pick becomes clearer. But as of right now, he's on the Raiders. So I'm not drafting Romeo Odunze. Chop Robinson is interesting here, as is Verse and Turner, where you drafted Tyree Wilson last year, and he has not performed up to expectations. Believe me, I was a big Tyree Wilson guy. But a guy like him with very raw talent and raw athleticism is going to take time to develop. He's going to take time to acclimate to the NFL game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a breakout sophomore year. I will be spamming never late, just early, just wherever I can. But I think you do give him another year to kind of solidify himself as that guy. And outside of these guys, I would say the best player available is probably Cooper DeJean. I haven't talked about him much because a lot of the teams we've talked about already don't really have a need at corner yet. I mean, that's just not true. The Bucks do, the Commanders do, but at the pick they're taking, I wouldn't say it's their first need, and I didn't think he was better than a guy like Fashanu, than a guy like Bowers or Neighbors. But he's a real, what are they called? Pocket knife kind of player, or I guess Swiss Army knife. kind of player where you can kind of ask him to do a lot. You can ask him to line up in the slot. You can ask him to go boundary. You can ask him to be a good, helpful run defensive corner, and he can go ahead and do that. Just getting an all-around great athlete, great um, weapon, very versatile one as well. And I think that's kind of a can't miss for the Raiders. The Raiders will probably find a way to mess him up and use him in a wrong way that nobody's ever seen before. But you can't do that when you're drafting. You have to have confidence in your coaching staff and take the best player available, especially when you're the Raiders. And that's kind of what I have to do here. Los Angeles Chargers, it's got to be receiver or defense, right? It simply has to be. Edge, I think they're pretty short up. Linebacker, it's a little too early to take. I could totally see a corner. I could see Nate Wiggins here or McKinstry. I could see, where is he? He's a little low. Terrion Arnold, I really like. Josh Newton, I think that's about right for him. Kalen King, I'm a little lower on. I think they could totally use a solid shutdown corner, but I think Justin Herbert needs a weapon. We've seen the clips of Quentin Johnston dropping balls this year, and that's its own discussion. But you need to get him a weapon he can really gel with, really get together with. And I don't think there's a bigger height, weight, speed freak is a term you're going to hear a lot about this guy, Romeo Dunze, in the draft this year. I don't know if it's Odunze or Odunze. Don't ask because I cannot say with any sort of confidence. But when you look at that defense, you can absolutely justify going with, like, the Wigginses of the world, the even Cam Kitchens of the world. Newbin, no, not at that pick. The Leonard Taylor, who is a little low for me. Actually, that's about right. Never mind. I lied. But I think that's where you go to keep your quarterback happy, because it's going to be time for him to sign. Is Herbert extended? I'm 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 really telling on myself here. 2029. Good God. Never mind. You want to keep him happy, basically, and especially when he's going to be here for the next 6 years, you want to give him weapons to run the offense with. Right now, he doesn't really have it. Mike Williams out, Keenan Allen getting older. He doesn't really have an X guy he can really trust whenever he throws the ball, and Odunze is a guy like that. Um, Bengals should be this low because I don't want them to. I straight up don't want to see him getting Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. That's disgusting. Or Bowers. They have enough receiving threats. A guy I talked about with Jackie Boy Sports, like I said, as liking this fit is actually Leonard Taylor III. Pair him next to DJ Reader, and I think that becomes pretty quickly one of the better off interior defensive lines in the game, combining his speed and finesse with Reader's. Am I saying the right name? Good God. Yeah, I am. Is he's still there, correct? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Dude, this is what happens when you don't do preparation. This is what happens when you're like, you know what, I got this. I know I know about all the teams enough to make a mock draft. Clearly you don't, Ben. No. But that was something really interesting we like to see. If they win a couple more games and get up into this 19-20 range, I could see that happening. But at 13, I think there's too many good other players on the board to that you can't really pass on at more valuable positions. A guy like Chop Robinson sticks out. A guy like, obviously, Joseph Osai out of Texas a couple years ago didn't work out exactly as they wanted to. He was a dog in college, but it didn't really translate to the NFL level. Chop Robinson's super enticing here. I like their secondary more than most people do. The offensive line is always an option, which could make this an Amarius Mims or Graham Barton pick. Fuaga, we'll talk. I'll make a video about Fuaga for sure, but I think as of right now, Chop Robinson at 13 looks just kind of way too enticing to pass up. If Leonard Taylor falls to the second, I don't know where they're picking in the second as of right now, but I could definitely see him trading up in the second to get a Leonard Taylor the third type of guy. But now we're at the Buffalo Bills. It's really weird to see them drafting at 14. They're not in the playoffs right now. They are really, really, really struggling, and something needs to happen. Tackle, I think they're set at. Receiver, they've got Diggs and they've got Gabe Davis, if you believe in him. I do. So I don't think receiver is really a need there. Interior defensive line, they have shored up. It's just injuries every year. Matt Milano hurt as well, but that is a good linebacking core. I think you're really looking at corner here. They drafted Khair Alam out of Florida in the last uh, end of the first round a couple of years ago. Did not quite work out for them. Wasn't what they were expecting, which is why I think they go Nate Wiggins. Here's a guy you can just tell him, yo, you're you're playing this guy today. You're just following him around the field all day, and you can feel comfortable with that because I do believe Nate Wiggins can guard almost anyone in the NFL. No big size concerns. I like his speed, good ball skills, very quick hips, very fluid hips, and that's why he's going to be my second cornerback off the board. May even be above Cooper DeJean for me once I get a little more into them, but I like the versatility of DeJean, where the Raiders don't really have a defensive identity right now, whereas the Bills do, so they can draft a little more for, I guess, fit, whereas this is a guy who fits anywhere, truthfully. Denver Broncos, quarterback would be cool here. Russ has not played out of his mind because he's just not good. And I would say offensive line is pretty solid. The edge rushers could use some help. And the DBs, I mean, Patrick Surtain. Like, you can't get greedy. Maybe in the later rounds you snag a Tariq Woolen or a Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati a couple years ago. But I don't think you get greedy and draft another super high caliber corner in the first round when you have bigger holes on your team. One of those bigger holes being edge with Dallas Turner and Jared Verse on the board. Jared Verse kind of played himself out of Edge 1 this year, I think. Going into the season, he was the consensus Edge 1. He had a great season opener against LSU, and he had a great end of the season against Louisville. Put Florida State in the CFP, by the way. But Dallas Turner has been a little better pretty consistently, and that adds up over time. And I think if you are going to take an edge here, it would be, Dallas Turner. A lot of talk about the receiver room, and I think it could be a good year to get the receiver and then get the quarterback next year in the form of a Drew Aller, Jalen Milroe, or Shedeur Sanders. Is Milroe next year? I have no idea. But I think with Dallas Turner, and I think with Dallas Turner available, you kind of have to take him. I like him a lot out of Alabama. Alabama consistently is producing great edge talent. You saw it with Will Anderson last year, and they're doing it again this year, which is gross but true. And I don't think Jared Verse has to wait too long because I like his fit in Seattle a lot. Their tackles are pretty short up. Charles Cross is doing a great job over on I believe, the right side of Geno Smith. I don't think this is a quarterback pick in this position. I don't think Penix or Daniels is enough of an upgrade to pass on filling a bigger need. Obviously not a cornerback pick. Probably not a tackle pick. Receiver there, again, embarrassment of riches, Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN, which leads me to believe Jared Verse is their choice at 16 as of right now. Their edge, they haven't been able to get as much pressure on defense as you want, which does make those star corners Devon Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen suffer, which I think if you draft Jared Verse, you're making everyone's life easier. The quarterback's going to have less time to throw because Verse is going to be able to beat them off the edge. He is still very talented, don't get me wrong. I know I have him going 4th off the board for edge rushers. He is still super talented. This is a very good edge class. Braylon Trice probably won't stick around much longer, nor will, where is he? God. Who am I thinking of right now? Princely Uman. I know I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's a dog. And I didn't love JT Tuimoloau that much when I watched like a couple Ohio State games. But going over to the Rams, this could be the quarterback, or this could be any defensive player, because really they need any defensive player. You could see them go with a Cam Kitchens to kind of fill not quite a Kyle Hamilton role, but have a Kyle Hamilton impact on that secondary year one. You could see them go offensive line. This could be a spot for Fuaga, but I still like Mims a little better. You could see a Kool-Aid McKinstry, but I do think ultimately they go defense. Trice is here, McKinstry's here, and to be able to kind of get the shutdown corner that McKinstry is this late at 17, I think it's going to be a Christian Gonzalez type comp where amazing corner, CB1 falls way, way down just for factors outside of his control. Happened with Christian Gonzalez last year, and I think it's totally possible it happens again this year. Arizona gets to pick again. They've already taken Marvin Harrison Jr., which Kyler loves. The defense is still iffy, though. Again, Cam Kitchens is here. I really, really do love Cam Kitchens, truthfully. Fuaga's here to kind of protect Kyler a little more. The offensive line is in shambles. Trice is here. Coleman's here, but obviously just drafted. Totally blanking on his name, Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not doing good, guys. I'm sorry, but I think the pick is Amarius Mims here. You want Kyler to be able to have the time to comfortably throw to who is a Marvin Harrison Jr. who is likely going to be open pretty frequently, and that's going to help ensure that. You could make a case for Trice, but I think this is a little too high for him. The rest of the corners, I think, would be a little too high for them. I like Arnold and Lassiter. Tampa's okay. But as King, I think, is solidly second round as well, and they're going to have a high second round pick. And I think Mims just kind of completes the offense into looking very, very competent going into next year. You'll likely make some defensive signings in free agency to help shore them up, and maybe you're not finishing last in the NFC West next year. As we move on to the Atlanta Falcons, I think Arthur Smith will be fired after this year. That's going to be the kind of premise that I'm working this mock draft around for the Falcons, and it could be a QB year, truthfully. Oh, you know what's kind of sexy to me? Jaden Daniels looks really sexy to the Falcons. Good offensive line, great weapons to help him flourish early. Yeah, that has to be it, I think. And I think Falcon fans are ecstatic. Came into the year lower on draft boards because he showed the rushing upside, but he wasn't able to really capture the kind of the passing competency that you want to see out of what is going to be a first-round quarterback. I think he's solidly jumped J.J. McCarthy. I think he's above Michael Penix Jr. as well, even though I do like both of those guys. Carson Beck being this high is a little weird to me. Ewers, I didn't really care for too much. I'm sorry. And I think Jaden Daniels could very well come in and immediately make the Falcons a NFC South contender. He might make them the favorites, quite honestly. Depending on what they do in the second round of free agency, that's going to be the guy. Green Bay. Bakhtiari's not going to be around forever. Neither is a lot of the offensive line. Interior defensive line, this could be a Leonard Taylor pick. He is, I think, IDL 2. Chris Jenkins 2, but after that, it's a big drop-off. I could see this being a tackle pick like a Latham. I could see this being a receiver pick, actually. Watson has been doing great this year, but in spurts. Coleman, I do like. Igbuka, I do like to create separation. Coleman, for other reasons, the run after the catch ability. You saw them run a ton of screens to him after Jordan Travis unfortunately fell down with his injury, and that could be kind of a safety outlet for Jordan Love as well, plus a guy who can go downfield, can create some separation, but his big, I guess, call to fame is the contested catch ability. We see Love put the ball in dangerous spots at times. We saw it on Thursday night. Am I thinking right? Thursday Night Football when they played the Lions? Not the Lions. God. My brain is so fried because I've been watching so much NBA recently. We saw it against the Chiefs. Sunday Night Football it was. Yeah. And I think as much as I do like the Fuaga pick, you may be able to get another year of Bakhtiari. I think the move is Keon Coleman. Minnesota Vikings. Uh, Penix I like here. Penix I like a lot. Being able to come into an Addison and Justin Jefferson receiver room is a super sexy prospect to me. The line is not as short up as you want it to for a decent run game, but should be good enough in pass pro to make him comfortable most of the time. McCarthy, I know this is like a kind of a casual take, but I don't love McCarthy as much as a lot of my contemporaries do, as much as a lot of the other film guys do. It's just not all there for me. The arm talent is good, the processing is a little slow. I don't love the throwing with anticipation, and Penix, in my opinion, would be the pick here. Again, Shador, I think, will be QB1 next year, but I don't think he's coming out this year. Fuaga could be here. Igbuka, no. Cam Kitchens, Harrison Smith, again, isn't going to be around forever. In terms of DBs, this could be a reach Kalen King pick, and I do kind of like that. I think Lassiter has the bigger upside, but I think I'm gonna play it safe and go Kalen King. This is a guy I do have a lower grade on. Second round, of course, not a bad grade at all, but it would be a little bit of a reach for him to fill a position of need. Not getting the quarterback they want, you probably let Kirk come back, see what you have with him, see if he's still a good quarterback, and if he's not, trade him middle of the season, I guess, and go all in for Shador or Aller or whoever. Again, that strategy has kind of burned teams in the past. You saw the Steelers do it, and the Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis draft class was obviously very highly touted, but it didn't end up exactly as people would have liked, even though Howell is balling over in Washington as much as he can, really. Indianapolis Colts are in a great spot, I think. The offensive line does need help, especially at the tackle position, which makes me think J.C. Latham immediately. But Emeka Igbuka also entices me as a Anthony Richardson weapon. You do, coming off a season-ending injury, though, I think the mindset is very much protect the young quarterback who could be injury prone in the future as much as you can, and that's why I think that this is where Latham goes. Fuaga, I'm having drop a lot. It's probably not as realistic just because tackles go very quickly in mock drafts. In the actual draft, it's true because it's one of the most valuable positions in the NFL. It's not quite all there for me. I have him much later in the first or second round at points, but certainly a name you need to know, a name you need to watch and form your own opinion for. But personally, it's not all there for me. The Steelers, speaking of the devil, we just talked about them. Just took Joey Porter Jr. They might be looking to pair him with somebody else, but again, I don't think the value is here. Newton, I would not draft at 23. Arnold and Lassiter, I would not draft at 23. High to mid second round, maybe. Newton probably closer to mid to late second round, but not at 23, I would say. At this point, if you're the Steelers, I think you're going best available, and that's Cam Kitchens. But again, Minka Fitzpatrick in that secondary is locking down that safety spot. Just period. You could use a center, but I think Cedric Van Pran would be a bit of a reach here. Where is he? I think Cedric Van Pran I like a lot would be a bit of a reach here. I didn't know PFF had Powers Johnson this high. Huh. That's interesting to me. Okay. I might have to go back and watch him again, because I did not think they would have him as higher than Van Pran. But I think this is the best player available. That could be very well Braylon Trice, Emeka Igbuka. They've had some receiver woes. But overall, I think this is where Braylon Trice goes. Pairing him up with TJ Watt on the other end will make his life infinitesimally easier. And we've seen edge duos tear up the league before. We see it with Bosa and Khalil Mack. Even though they're not winning very many games, but that's because the Chargers are an incompetently run organization. We saw it we see it on the 49ers almost every year. We see Young and Bosa right now. I think it's a good recipe for success. Now the Houston Texans, who are one of the most exciting youngest teams in the league with a very bright future ahead of them. Wide receiver listed as a need, don't see it. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, you're kind of set there. Maybe you're going third, fourth round, you're going receiver hunting, but I don't think that's in the cards for them. I don't think that's really what they want to do. I think they want to fill other positions of need. You obviously have Tunsil already protecting CJ Stroud, but if you really, really want to shore that up, it could be Fuaga. Um, Ooh, that's really sexy to me right now, actually. Let me check their depth chart, because if maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think they have like an extraordinary safety unless I'm being really dumb right now. Pitter is good, low key. I do kind of like Pitter enough to pass on Kitchens though. Kind of no. I like defensive line too. This could be the Leonard Taylor pick. This could be. I don't think it's a Tuamaloau pick. Jalen Polk, I don't love that much. Braswell, I haven't watched. I'm just gonna say it. I think it'll be Cam Kitchens. I think that he is going to make their defense super super complete. Where you already have Will Anderson rushing the passer, you have Stingley who has had a tough year. I won't lie, but you can't really replace him at this spot specifically. Um, he shores up that secondary to kind of take away a lot of explosive plays, get big hits, maybe even sometimes come down to the box to stop the run, but I don't think that is where he would be best utilized, even if he can do it. Kansas City Chiefs, it has to be receiver. I think Mecca Egbuka falling here is. I think they're counting their lucky stars here. Fuaga to protect Mahomes is okay, but I think Mahomes is good on his own. I think the no-brainer is kind of Egbuka. Here's a guy who's been in Marvin Harrison Jr.'s shadow pretty frequently, and it's hard to see. It's not hard to see why. I've been talking nonstop for a while now. I don't know how people do this. Um, Igbuka is very, very good in his own right, and certainly a first-round talent receiver in his own right. He does get overshadowed, but a lot of the things Marvin Harrison Jr. does well, Igbuka can also do very well. Maybe not the same level, but very, very well regardless. Chiefs need a receiver desperately, and I think that is their pick. Looking at the other receivers, Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Legette would actually be really cool. Ladd McConkey is a guy I like a lot too. Johnny Wilson's just a big body dude. Jalen McMillan, again, just anyone out of that Washington receiver core is going to be gas. But yeah, I think Igbuka is probably the best wide receiver left. You're not going to hear his name a ton, but you will once he's in the NFL. For the Jaguars, you might look DB, but I don't think they're reaching to fill a need here. Interior offensive line, this is a really, really weak draft for that. And you don't usually see them taken in the first round. 26 is maybe a little more reasonable. Maybe you take Powers Johnson if you like him, or Van Pran, who's apparently so low. I like him. I don't know. I think he's a good power blocker. I think he can pass pro relatively well and can power block for the run pretty well. But what the hell do I know? I'm not getting paid to do this. If you don't want to pay me to do this, my social security now. Jags, and it looks like we'll probably have Michael Penix Jr. dropping out of the first round, which is weird. But the Jags, I think this is kind of the one of the tougher ones we have to pick, just because they are really good. They could go receiver. Christian Kirk recently injured. I think he tore his groin. Ridley hasn't been doing exactly what you want, but he did just come off a full season of not playing. This is tough. This is kind of gross. The tackles here are really strong, and I think we may see that just to check out their tackle depth. I don't know if I love it. They got Scherf in the offseason, so I think that shores up their guard, at least their right guard spot, a little. Anton Harrison they did just draft, and okay, did not mean to click on Travis Etienne Jr., but you're just going to say fuck you, I guess. Walker Little is... He was drafted pretty recently, and he's been playing pretty solid, if I remember correctly. You don't hear guys complaining about him, which is kind of the telltale sign. If nobody's talking about your offensive lineman, he's probably doing a pretty good job. Same with catchers in baseball. But With those two ahead of him, I can't see a Graham Barton or a Fuaga pick. Newbin, I don't think is good enough to go 26 personally. I also like Andre Cisco, Syracuse guy, out in their secondary. Receiver, I don't love. I could see a Leonard Taylor for sure. The edge rushers here are a little weak, which is why I think this kind of just turns into a best player available, and that might be Leonard Taylor. This is, I think, a good spot for him. I think this fits what I graded him pretty well. 26, I think, is more than reasonable. Bengals are kind of kicking themselves that they didn't draft him earlier, but I think they'll be okay because they got Chop Robinson. Cowboys, fuck them. But they have needs of their own for sure. That offensive line is getting old, which is why you could see a Fuaga or a Nubin. And you've seen troubles in the secondary. Bland obviously making the headlines, but again, it's another Trayvon Diggs situation. Truthfully, you bring in Stephon Gilmore, you get Bland in like the 6th round, I think, and Trayvon Diggs gets hurt. This cornerback room is very boom or bust. You might want to take a safer pick, a guy who's not going to get a ton of interceptions, but he's going to limit the deep stuff. A guy like Josh Newton, a guy like TJ Tampa, or you could try to take the top off of the offense and draft a guy like Tyler Newman out of Minnesota. But again, I think it's a little too early for where he is to me. I think their receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb are a little tough, which could give me a super, super, super fun excuse to draft Xavier Legette, but he's kind of in the same skill set as CD to me. I may have to rewatch him again and see if that's true, but eh. Adonai Mitchell is really interesting here. Texas, keep him in the hometown. And that might be where I have to go. I think Lassiter is a little too boomer bust. I mean, you don't want a full secondary of just guys who are either going to get a pick or get burnt, and that's what you may end up having with a guy like Kamari Lassiter. I think the pick here is Adonai Mitchell. I think Dallas fans may abuse him when he drops a pass, which could happen because his hands are not as sure as people may lead you to believe. But I think he will be able to grow well in Dallas. Lions, okay. Are we looking at Penix here? I don't think so. The liberal media wants you to think Jared Goff is bad, and I can't buy into it. I think he's pretty solid. You could be looking at receiver here. Williams, is he still playing? Is he still suspended? I think he is. He had the full season, didn't he? He just doesn't play ever. He's gonna go into his 3rd year with like 1 game played. I think they're short up on the tackle side with Penei Sewell, so Fuaga and Barton may be out. DB room again. I think it's just a little too high for some of these guys. This could be a trade back team. Let's check out the depth chart really quick, just to see what we're kind of. Oh yeah. I don't know why I just said Lions Detroit. I may be stupid. At safety, they're running up Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, who does a lot of really good things that are separate from what Tyler Nubin does. So that could be a really interesting kind of next Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde situation. I don't think that is what it is. Jet Campbell's been playing well. Certainly overdrafted. You could have gotten him in the 2nd round. But, hey, I'm not going to hate on him because they took a good player a little too high. Hutchinson I don't love, but I don't think he's bad enough to replace. And you could really just be looking at another receiver. Amon Ra, Jameson Williams coming back, though you might want to wait on him. Laporta, solid. Taylor Decker, solid. Sewell, obviously great. This is a really tough pick, and I think this is definitely a trade back situation. But I'm going to have them reaching a little bit, not too far up, but I'm going to have them reaching for TCU cornerback Josh Newton. If you're wondering, my lighting has just changed. It's because I use a white screen YouTube video to light my face to give myself some soft lighting for these, and it's just given me an ad. So that's gone now. Watch. I'm gonna press skip ad on this, and it's gonna get better. Look at that. Anyway, 50 minutes of me talking uninterrupted. Somebody restrain me. What do the Niners even really need? at this point. Like, I'm so serious. Quarterback? Dude, if they drafted Penix, that would be the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I may die laughing. I may die laughing. Their offensive line is shored up with Williams. They've got all the weapons in the world with McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. Their defensive line is one of the best in the league. They have Fred Warner at linebacker. They've got Hufanga in the secondary. Maybe they need a corner, and maybe they can kind of afford to take a Kamari Lassiter here, and take that big swing. And the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like, I kind of like that. This may be a Fuaga pick. Who do they have on the opposite Trent Williams? Let me check this out. I split. I'm sorry. I split my attention between too many sports, and I've lost sight of Colton McKivitz. Okay, yeah, no, they're taking Fuaga. I think I lied. I think they may take Lassiter in the second. I could see a trade up for that, but I think Fuaga was too good to let fall this far initially. But most of these teams already have pretty shored up offensive lines. Latham was the last one taken for the Colts, and I don't think any of these teams really need to tackle that much. You could make the argument for the Chiefs. You could make the argument for Dallas with their aging offensive line, or the Jags. But I think we're gonna let them get away with it again. Quite honestly, that's how I feel. Baltimore Ravens. Another receiver would be awesome. Of course, you should have drafted Flowers before all them. Now he will devour when you run press man. But there's never. I just saw Xavier Legette on the board and I almost came. That's kind of super sexy. Lamar is, I think, pretty safe behind that offensive line. I don't think it's a big position to need. Interior defensive linemen and edge rushers, I don't think Chris Jenkins is 30th pick material. I don't think Tuamalu is 30th pick material, even if they want you to think that. It may be very difficult for me to pass on Xavier Legette here. I'm not moved by Bateman or OBJ. I am very moved by Xavier Legette. Oh my god. Looking at it, Penix, no. Newbin, no. Graham Barton, I don't think so. Xavier Legette, yeah. Worthy, maybe. I like Worthy a lot. People are saying, oh man, Adonai Mitchell is actually way better than Xavier Worthy. A lot of you guys are stupid for thinking Xavier Worthy was the best receiver on this Texas team, and maybe he's not, but he is still a very, very good receiver who will likely go in the first round, in my opinion. But I don't think I can pass on Xavier Legette. Can you imagine if he works out and they have Andrews, Legette, and Zay Flowers? Dude, finally Ravens fans' prayers will be answered. Miami, pretty easy. Graham Barton. Protect Tua Tagovailoa at all costs. If he gets sacked and his head hits the ground, he may shatter into dust. I'm barely joking, unfortunately, but Graham Barton will come in and pretty immediately make an impact on that Miami offensive line. Fauatanu, I'm so sorry. I don't think is first round material. I love Jordan Morgan. I think he will go above 44 likely, but I don't think he's better than Barton. Now we look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Fuck the Eagles. You do not need a receiver. Linebacker, they just got Shaq Leonard, and maybe this is the first linebacker off the board. But again, Carter and Trotter I previewed in my what you need to know about the 2024 NFL Draft video. Go watch that if you haven't, because I talk about a lot of these guys a lot less in depth, but I give you kind of a breakdown of the guys you need to know at each position. These were the two guys I said. Apparently, Edgerrin Cooper is having a great year. I'll have to go out and watch him, but I don't think I'm not going to draft him just because I haven't watched him. And DB, I mean, not really even. Maybe they can. Dude, actually, fuck it. Yeah, you're getting another Georgia player. you're getting another Georgia player, Philly. I'm sorry. It's just how it has to be. Here's the full mock. You can look at it right here in all its glory. I will probably post it to Twitter. Download image. Hell yeah, brother. And yeah, this is what it looks like so far. Some of the picks I may go back and change. just because it was really difficult. I would say I might swap out DeJean for Nate Wiggins. I might have uh, Keon Coleman go higher. I may have him go to like the Broncos or the Bills. Could be actually super sexy, but I like Nate Wiggins there. Um, I may have him go to the Chargers, depending on what I think of Odunze after further investigation. I've seen more games of Coleman than I have of Odunze, so I have a much better grasp on what Coleman is. Maybe that's my next guy. I usually like to alternate between offensive, defense, and offense is up next. And I believe I just got a bunch of new videos from my super secret film source on it. So that's super exciting. And I'm just going to make sure the stream has been running all right. And I don't have to do this again because I may cry because my voice, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the voice is hurting. The voice is killing me. Jesus. I've got some Panera mac and cheese I'm gonna munch on after I get out of here. I'm gonna be so honest. I'm starving. I did not eat when I got home from school, but we ball, all in the name of content. And it looks like stream has been going a-okay. Super happy to see that again. Um, I think the Cardinals make out really well in this. I think the Texans make out really well in this. Where are they with Kitchens? And I think those will be the two big winners of just round one, aside from the teams who get quarterbacks. I think Phoenix will likely go round one, perhaps to a Lions or a Broncos, like a team who's really needy for a quarterback. Maybe even the Rams. I could see that happening. But that's all for me today, really. I don't know if I can talk for another second uninterrupted. I'm starting to lose my damn mind. Thank you so much for watching. That's going to be it for me today, and I'm going to catch you.